In 2005, DreamWorks handed a director $126 million. Two of the hottest stars on the planet, and a science fiction premise so good it had already been made once before. And they still managed to destroy it.
You want to go to the island.
The island didn't just fail at the box office. It collapsed. It cratered. It became one of the most talked about disasters in summer blockbuster history. A cautionary tale about what happens when Hollywood gets a great idea and then does absolutely everything wrong with it. But here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. The Island was actually good. Let's start with what The Island actually is. Because if you've never seen it, the premise is genuinely remarkable for a summer blockbuster. It's 2019. A group of survivors live in a sealed, sterile facility, cut off from a contaminated outside world. They eat what they're told to eat. They wear what they're told to wear. They dream of winning the lottery. A random selection that sends the lucky winner to the island, the last uncontaminated paradise on Earth. Except none of it is real. The survivors are clones. They exist for one reason only, to be harvested. Their organs, their tissue, their bodies, kept alive and healthy until the wealthy clients who commission them need a spare part. The island doesn't exist. The lottery is a death sentence dressed up as a dream. That is a legitimately chilling premise. It raises real questions about identity, about what makes a person, about bodily autonomy and manufactured consent. These are not the ideas you expect from a summer action movie. These are the ideas you expect from Philip K. and Dick. For a brief, shining moment in early 2005, it looked like Hollywood was about to do something genuinely daring. It looked like they were going to make a smart, provocative science fiction film on a blockbuster budget with movie stars in the lead roles. They were not. The wrong director for the right story. To understand why The Island failed, you have to understand who Michael Bay was in 2005. He was coming off Bad Boys 2. He was deep in pre-production conversations about Transformers. He was, by any Hollywood metric, a machine, a reliable, bankable generator of enormous, loud, profitable spectacle. Studios loved him because he delivered. Audiences showed up. The numbers worked. And for a certain kind of movie, that's exactly what you want. The Island was not that kind of movie. The story needed tension. It needed silence. It needed a director willing to sit with the horror of what these people are and what's being done to them, to let the audience feel the weight of it before the chases started. It needed someone who trusted the idea enough to let it breathe. Bay doesn't do breathing. To be fair to him, he clearly understood parts of what made the story work. The early facility scenes are genuinely unsettling. The world building is careful and precise. There are moments in the first act where you can see the shape of a great film underneath. But the moment the action kicks in, Bay reverts to instinct, and his instincts are pure horsepower. The chase sequences are enormous. The explosions are enormous. The camera never stops moving. And with every passing minute of mayhem, the ideas that made the premise so compelling get further and further away, until by the third act you've almost forgotten that this was ever a film about anything other than things blowing up. The Island needed a director who was a little afraid of it. Bay was afraid of nothing. And that was the problem. The plagiarism lawsuit. Nobody talked about before The Island opened to a single paying customer. It was already in legal trouble. In 1979, a low-budget science fiction film called Parts, the Clonus horror, was released to very little fanfare. It told the story of a group of clones kept in an isolated compound, harvested for their organs, dreaming of escape to a promised paradise. Sound familiar? The makers of Clonus thought so too. They sued DreamWorks before The Island even hit theaters, claiming the studio had lifted their story almost point for point. The facility, the lottery, the escape, the harvesting. All of it. The case never went to trial. DreamWorks settled out of court for an undisclosed sum, which in Hollywood terms is about as close to an admission as you're ever going to get. The lawsuit did two things, neither of them good for the film. First, It created a legal cloud over the project that made everyone nervous. Studios, distributors, press. Nobody wanted to champion a film that was actively being accused of theft. Second, and more damagingly, it handed critics a weapon. When the reviews came in, the Clonus connection was in almost every one of them. It became part of the film's identity before the film had a chance to establish one of its own. The Island walked into its opening weekend already wounded, and it hadn't even reached the starting line yet. DreamWorks didn't know what they had. If you watched the trailers for The Island in the summer of 2005, here is what you saw. Explosions, car chases, Ewan McGregor looking determined, Scarlett Johansson looking beautiful, things on fire, a helicopter, more explosions. The words from the director of Bad Boys 2 displayed prominently like a selling point. Here is what you did not see. Any indication that this was a film about clones, any suggestion of the ethical questions at its core, any hint of the horror underneath the action, any reason whatsoever for a person who likes science fiction and ideas to buy a ticket. DreamWorks made a decision early on, possibly the single most damaging decision in the film's entire history, to market The Island as a pure summer action blockbuster. They were terrified of the science fiction elements. They were terrified that the clone premise would make audiences feel like they were being asked to think, and thinking, as every studio executive will tell you, does not sell popcorn. So they buried the premise. They sold the spectacle. They made a trailer for a Michael Bay action movie and hoped nobody would notice that the actual film had something more complicated going on inside it. The result was a marketing campaign that attracted exactly the wrong audience and repelled exactly the right one. Action fans showed up expecting wall-to-wall mayhem and felt shortchanged by the slower, more thoughtful first act. Science fiction fans didn't show up at all because nothing in the marketing told them this was their kind of film. DreamWorks managed to make a movie that disappointed everyone, including the people who would have loved it. The Island opened on July 22, 2005. It made $12.4 million in its opening weekend, on a $126 million budget, with two of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood. On one of the biggest weekends of the summer movie season, $12 million. To put that in perspective, the film would have needed to gross somewhere in the region of $250 million worldwide just to break even when marketing costs were factored in. It ended up with $162 million globally. A significant chunk of that came from overseas markets where Michael Bay had a stronger following. The domestic numbers were a catastrophe. DreamWorks pulled it from wide release within weeks. The film disappeared from theaters almost as fast as it had arrived. Bay later spoke about the experience with unusual candor for a director not exactly known for public self-reflection. He said it was the most painful experience of his career. He said he felt he'd let people down. There was a rawness to those comments that suggested The Island's failure hit him somewhere personal, not just professionally. The damage extended beyond Bay. DreamWorks absorbed a loss that industry analysts later pointed to as one of several financial blows that led to the studio's eventual sale to Paramount Pictures. The Island didn't just fail, it left a mark. The film itself was actually pretty good. Here is the uncomfortable truth that gets buried under all of the above. The Island is a good movie, not a perfect movie, not a great movie, but a genuinely solid, watchable, an often compelling piece of science fiction filmmaking that deserved a far better fate than it got. Ewan McGregor is excellent. He plays Lincoln 6 Echo, a clone beginning to ask questions the facility doesn't want asked, with a wide-eyed curiosity that never tips into stupidity. You believe in him completely. Scarlett Johansson brings a vulnerability to Jordan 2 Delta that grounds the more operatic moments. Their chemistry is real, and it matters because the emotional core of the film depends on you caring about two people who technically shouldn't exist. The first act is where the film is at its best. The facility sequences are precise and eerie. The world feels fully realized. The horror of what's actually happening seeps in slowly, the way good science fiction horror should. When the truth finally lands, it lands hard. Yes. The second and third acts lose the thread somewhat. The action sequences are excessive in the way Bay action sequences always are. The philosophical weight established in the first hour gets progressively lighter as the explosions get progressively larger. The ending is too tidy by half. But the ideas are still there, underneath all of it. The questions the film asks about identity and personhood and what it means to be human, those questions don't disappear just because a truck is on fire in the background. The island was smarter than it was given credit for, and it was certainly smarter than the way it was sold. What killed it? The real answer. The island didn't fail because it was bad. It failed because nobody involved could agree on what it was supposed to be. Michael Bay wanted to make a spectacle. DreamWorks wanted a summer tentpole that would print money. The screenplay wanted to be a serious science fiction film with something genuine to say. And those three things were never reconciled. Not in development, not in production, not in the marketing suite, not anywhere. When a film is at war with itself, audiences feel it. They may not be able to articulate exactly what's wrong, but they sense the confusion, the lurching between tones, the ideas that get raised and then abandoned, the feeling that the movie can't quite decide what it's asking of you. That's what people felt with The Island. And when audiences feel confused, they stay home. And when they stay home, the numbers collapse. And when the numbers collapse, the film gets buried. And once a film gets buried, the reputation calcifies and nobody goes back to look at it clearly. The Island deserved better than all of that. It deserved a director who was willing to be uncomfortable with it. It deserved a studio willing to tell the truth about what it was. It deserved an audience that was given the chance to find it on its own terms. It got none of those things. Legacy and what could have been. Something interesting has happened to The Island in the 20 years since its release. People keep finding it. On streaming platforms, on late-night cable, on home video, generation after generation of science fiction fans stumbling across a movie they'd never heard of and coming away genuinely surprised. The reviews they leave are almost uniformly the same. Better than expected, smarter than it looks, worth your time. The Island has joined a quiet club of films that the marketplace failed before the audience could reach them. Blade Runner bombed in 1982 and is now considered one of the greatest science fiction films ever made. Dredd was a box office disaster in 2012 and has since become a cult classic with a passionate following. John Carter was declared dead on arrival in 2012 and is now regularly defended by people who actually sat down and watched it. The Island belongs in that conversation. Not as a masterpiece, it isn't one, but as a genuinely interesting, frequently underestimated film that was handed to the wrong people and sold with the wrong message and dismissed before it ever had a fighting chance. The premise alone was worth protecting. The clones locked in a beautiful prison, dreaming of an island that doesn't exist, living half-lives in the service of people who don't see them as people. That is a story worth telling. It still is. Hollywood didn't kill The Island because it was a bad idea. It killed it because good ideas make studios nervous, because a $126 million film about clones and ethics and what makes a person was a harder sell than a $126 million film about things exploding. Because somewhere between the development room and the multiplex, the people in charge lost their nerve. The Island deserved a director willing to sit with its darkness. It deserved marketing that told the truth. It deserved an audience that was trusted to handle a real idea. It got none of those things, and that's exactly why The Island failed. If you think it deserved better, do all the things that help this channel. Like, subscribe. I'll leave a comment telling me which underrated sci-fi film I should cover next. Until then.